Throughout American history, more than 1 million military service members have fallen on the field of battle defending our nation. Trained for some of the most grueling missions, those who serve are well prepared for the high cost that comes with wearing a uniform. But for the hundreds of thousands that were exposed to asbestos during their military service, the fighting continues.
In its contained state, it's not a problem, but when it's disrupted, it becomes microscopic fibers in the air. And if they're inhaled or ingested, they can go after the lungs, the heart, or the stomach. And the latency period is 30 to 50 years. So it becomes very detrimental to the body. It causes scarring and eventually cancer.
Because of its heat and fireproofing capabilities, asbestos was widely used by our country's military from World War I through the Vietnam era in a number of military divisions. Most commonly used by the Navy, asbestos puts service members particularly at risk of developing lung cancer, mesothelioma, and other life-threatening diseases.
Asbestos is a dangerous mineral, and it's dangerous to people who are exposed to it because it causes a myriad of diseases. It could cause asbestosis, it could cause lung cancer, or even a rarer form of cancer known as mesothelioma.
Mesothelioma can be considered aggressive because of the specific symptoms. Usually individuals have a great deal of fluid that fills up either their chest cavity or their abdominal region. They have very much difficulty breathing. They often have chest pain. They can also cough up sputum. It's very aggressive in a way that it's fast acting, and normally when doctors unfortunately find it, it's often too late for a form of treatment.
Obviously, ships are loaded with asbestos because of the insulation qualities and wrapping pipes and the engine rooms and the boiler rooms, all the electrical components. Army, Air Force, the Marines, all with their vehicles, their motor pools, their planes, their helicopters, all of those instruments used by the military had, at some points in time, asbestos in them, which made the exposure to the military higher than the average person.
Evidence proves that companies who manufactured, sold, and installed asbestos products to our U.S. military and private companies had extensive knowledge of its deadly hazards as early as 1920. Yet these corporations waited decades to provide warnings to veterans, factory and mill workers, and the general public of the risks involved.
There was a report called the Sumner-Simpson Papers that showed that there was irrefutable evidence that the companies knew that there was a definite link between asbestos exposure and mesothelioma and other forms of cancer. So you have corporate representatives, corporate offices, and representatives of companies that manufacture asbestos, and they're saying, look, we have this information, but we don't really care. We're not really that concerned about protecting the public. We're more concerned about protecting the profits of our companies.
It is estimated that military veterans account for 30% of all mesothelioma patients in the United States. Since these individuals face an uncertain future, those who were wrongfully exposed to asbestos are eligible for compensation and assistance as they cope with the reality of this life-threatening illness.
Many veterans, whether they be injured during wartime or afterwards, understand that they have rights. Those rights may include benefits that come from veterans organizations or from the United States itself. But they should know they have other rights as well. They have a right to seek justice against the companies who supplied asbestos-containing materials that expose them to those deadly fibers. At Sokolove Law, we spend a great deal of time educating veterans to not just the symptoms to help them identify their disease, but also their legal rights.
For over 30 years, Sokolove Law has assisted victims of asbestos exposure and their loved ones in achieving the justice and compensation they may be entitled to from the manufacturers that provided harmful asbestos to companies and military.
Hundreds of thousands of people have been exposed to asbestos, and a significant group of those unknowingly were exposed to asbestos in their workplace in the military and in their workplace after the military. And we've taken it upon ourselves as a mission of this firm to take care of veterans who've taken care of our country, and we're looking to educate and take care of those same veterans today.
The medical costs associated with mesothelioma and diseases related to asbestos exposure can be extremely high. Veterans diagnosed with mesothelioma have been paid millions in settlements from the manufacturers of asbestos products that put their lives at risk.
Once somebody is diagnosed with mesothelioma, depending on what their doctors want to do in terms of treatment, it could also get very expensive. They could be traveling to various specialized cancer treatment centers. They could be undergoing chemotherapy. They could have radiation, various types of surgeries, or they could just be sent home in hospice. Either way, it is a burden for the family. Sokolove Law, what we're doing here is we're trying to step in. We're trying to receive some sort of settlements or verdicts from the companies that might have actually harmed this person or harmed this person's family who's been diagnosed with mesothelioma. And hopefully those settlements and hopefully those verdicts will help with everything that's going on right now.
Because thousands of people continue to be diagnosed with mesothelioma each year, Sokolove Law is dedicated to informing veterans of their legal rights.
A lot of veterans think that when they bring a claim for asbestos exposure, which has resulted in lung cancer or mesothelioma, that they have to bring a claim against the military or against the United States government. This is not the truth at all. When these veterans bring claims, they're actually bringing claims against the manufacturers of the asbestos and not against the United States government or the military.
If you or a loved one have been diagnosed with mesothelioma or asbestos-related cancer and want information on the symptoms and warning signs, military exposure, treatment options, and legal rights, please visit our Mesothelioma Resource Center at mesorc.com/vets.